in a setting that evokes community service. Equality, innovation, honesty, and advancement are all words we choose from a list. Our prophets are awe-inspiring, like this guy who's looking up and pointing at a skyscraper or a kite while smiling and explaining something to his child. Using a specific ratio of Asian people to black people to women to white men, we want to make sure we represent your needs and interests, or at least a version of your skin color in our ads. Did we put a baby in here? What about an ethnic old man whose wrinkled smile represents the happiness and wisdom of the poor? Yep.
So that's, some of you have probably seen that before. I freaking love that thing. It was great. And it's funny because it's true, right? I mean, that is every corporate video ever, right? All the same crap, all the same reused stuff. So hopefully by the end of this, we'll be inspired to never do that again. Okay, so my name is Frank Schwartz, as you mentioned. I'm the CEO of LEC Media. We're a video marketing and production firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're going to move through this very quickly because I know we're limited on time. So what we do is we help large corporate entities with their video strategy, and it is awesome, and I love it, and it is super glamorous. Like, you can't probably tell what that is, but this is me holding crap up on a set that we tweeted out, right? That's my job as CEO. I hold crap where people tell me to hold crap. It's super glamorous. I also have a beautiful wife and 3 redheaded daughters. People ask me sometimes, where did the red hair come from? I usually tell them from their birth parents. Because neither my wife nor I have red hair, nor does anyone anywhere in our family anywhere. But that also is a super glamorous life. I get to do things like play dress up and Barbies and get my nails done, things like that. And every once in a while I get to break away and do something fun like this. So for the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to talk about video. All right? Now, I have to mention here at the very beginning that I am a psychologist by education. I am not this psychologist, that's Sigmund Freud, but I am a psychologist by education. I got into this video deal by accident, which is another long story for another time. But it is somewhat relevant to what we're going to talk about today, so that's why I mention it. We're going to mention how video can be used to drive behavior. Truthfully, the name of this presentation probably should have been Get People to Do Shit Using Video. That's probably what it should have been called, but since you can't really print that, people won't be interested maybe or think you're a jerk or something. I didn't print that, but so we're going to talk about driving behavior using video. We're going to talk about why video works and kind of the biological underpinnings of what makes good video strategy. And then at the end, I'll hopefully give you a couple of takeaways that make you a better marketer because that's why you came here in the first place. Now, some of you came just for the takeaways. I understand. Just ask the guy next to you to kind of just elbow you in about 20 minutes, okay? So there's a lot of research out there, both anecdotal and some that are reasonably scientific. Google talks a lot about micro moments and those little small decision points that we make along the way as we get ready to buy something. They talk a lot about millennials. In fact, if you were just in the session over on stage 2, a lot of talk about millennials and their decision-making process, the things that they like and don't like. The truth is that they love video. That's a thing. And more decision makers in these large corporate entities are going to be millennials. And so it's useful for us to know that. I'm not going to go through inside a lot of research. Let's just leave it at this: video good. Okay? All right. So I like to ask this question just because I want to get a feel of who's in the room. Are there corporate marketers? A lot of corporate marketers. Who's a corporate marketer? Okay. All right. Who's an agency that helps corporate marketers? Okay, agencies. Did you see all those guys that raised their hands? Go talk to them. But sir, here in the front, what business are you in?
Experiential marketing.
Experiential marketing. Anybody else? What business are you in, ma'am? Media. Okay. Anybody else? What business? Just throw it out there. What business are you in? Tourism. University. Okay. All those are good answers. They're all accurate answers to a degree. But unfortunately, I don't believe that they're the truth. Not that you're lying to me. I think you're telling me the truth, but it's not the full truth. The truth is we're in the people business. And if that's ever not your first answer, and I know that sounds cliche, but if that's ever not your first answer, then you're giving the wrong answer. I'm in the people business, and I help people with experiential marketing. I help people with their tourism, right? That's the business that we're in, okay? So until the robots become self-aware and take over, or the zombie apocalypse comes, or whatever it might be, our answer is, we're in the people business. Okay. Because that's the first business. So let's talk a little bit about the customer journey. There are a lot of models out there. We've seen the funnel. Everybody knows the funnel. Raise your hand if you've seen the funnel. You know the funnel, right? You start with a lot of choices, and then you present some information, get down to a fewer choices, and it gets down to one choice. That's old. That's apparently not how it works anymore. All the geniuses that do research say that's not the way it works anymore. So there's a lot of different models that have been developed over time. The one that sort of sticks right now is more of this customer journey. Did anybody go to the BMA conference in Chicago? No? Well, do this. Go search. Not right now. Do it later because apparently the Wi-Fi doesn't work anyway, so whatever. But search BMA 2015 Andrew Davis and watch his talk about the customer journey. It's amazing. Very informative. And really what it comes down to is it's a different world, right? Things have changed. The consumer that we have now is different than the consumer that we had even 5 or 10 years ago, right? People know more about you now than ever before they ever get to you and actually contact you. They've done tons of research. In fact, there's research to indicate that 57% of people make some sort of decision about whether or not they're going to buy from you before they ever even contact you. And so what are we telling them in this journey before they actually get that far, right? So McKinsey and Company put together this model. It looks like kind of an egg. So we're not a funnel anymore, we're an egg, and that's okay. So you see this little star, and it says, the word on the star is trigger, okay? And so something in you is triggered, and then you take that information and you create what they call an initial consideration set, all right? And that's the beginning of choices, right? The beginning of things that you start to look at to decide whether or not you're gonna buy this certain thing. And then you move into an active consideration phase, right? And then at some point in that active consideration phase, you may, instead of funneling down to fewer, you may even add a few choices of things you may want to buy or things you may want to understand about. And then at some point later in there, that second dot is the moment of purchase. We call it a moment of decision, a moment of behavior, whatever that is, because it could be a subscription, it could be buying something, it could be just taking the next step in that journey, whatever it might be. And then you get people in this kind of loyalty loop, right? So there's some sort of post-purchase experience that they have. Hopefully everything that they bought from you worked well. It didn't suck, I don't know. And then you remarket to those people and so on and so on and so on, right? So does that make sense? Let me hear, yeah? No? They're like, no, it doesn't make any sense, you didn't explain it well. That's fine, go look it up. McKinsey and Company, it's a customer journey, not a funnel, right? So the trigger, that star, that trigger could be anything. It could be a proactive trigger, so it could be something that I gave to someone. I told you, hey, you need to know about this. Or it could be a reactive trigger, something that happened to you. So if it's 11:30 on a Friday in our office, the reactive trigger is probably hunger, because we have company lunch together on Friday. We try to bond that way. We're Americans. We bond over food. That's what we do. And we're Southern, so it's particularly strong that way. And this is exactly what our company lunches look like, right? There's champagne and some guy with slick hair going, ha, ha, ha. That's probably me, right? The ha, ha guy. And all the good diversity is represented there. That's what our company lunches look like. So the trigger happens. It's 11:30 on a Friday, and everybody's hungry, and so we have to decide where we're going to go to lunch, right? So we take an initial consideration set, and we say, oh, I want Mexican, I want Chinese, I want burgers, I want whatever, right? Doesn't matter. And then we begin that active evaluation, and so there's a lot of factors that may play into that, right? Proximity to our office, price. Do we want to drive to where we're going? How many cars do we even have to get there, or whatever it is, right? So we start that active evaluation, and that's when we go to Google and go, Google, since you answer everything for me, what should I eat? Right? That's what you ask Google, isn't it? What should I eat? The funny thing is I typed what should, no, I think I got to I. I think I got to what should I, and eat was the first one. Like, apparently people do ask Google, what should I eat? Like, what should I wear today? I don't know. Take a picture of your closet. I don't know. Anyway. So you ask Google, and it gives you, or maybe you go to Yelp, or maybe you go to Urban Spoon, or whatever it is, right? And you find more information on these restaurants. That's your active evaluation phase, and then at some point, you might actually take that and instead of going over to the active, actually making a purchase, right? You might run back over to an initial consideration set of, now we've narrowed it down to Mexican restaurants. Let's figure out which one, right? And so there's more information to get, and it just kind of keeps going this way until somebody makes a decision. So, blah, 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 blah. what we did, we just finally got sick of it because it was a giant pain in the ass, and so we actually just decided to roll for it. This is true. We labeled bingo balls, and we put it in a big cage, and we would go, oh, A17, looks like we're going to the burger place down the street, because that was the easiest way to do it, and it came with a theme song, and anyway, it's really complicated. Look, if you go to our Facebook page, you can see it, okay? We made videos of it, of us choosing to go to lunch. I just realized how sad that sounded. But that's okay. We made videos about where we were going to go to lunch. But we're a video company, so it makes sense. Anyway, so the point is that's one way to handle it, right? I could throw all the choices into a bingo ball thing and spin it around, and whatever I come out with is whatever I come out with. So imagine now your prospect, your consumer, the people to whom you are marketing, choosing that way. It's not a lot different than that when they go to the internet, okay? So we have to do something to present our message correctly in a different way so that it will actually drive behavior. It simply has to change. So let's talk about our brains for a second. Here's how it works. So in our brains, there are different areas, right? There's this kind of primal brain that's in the middle, the limbic brain that's in the red there. The limbic brain is in charge of things like emotion, feelings, instincts, not all of instincts. That's complicated. I won't get off on that. But this outer stuff, this frontal lobe stuff, is in charge of things like rational thought. That's the part of your brain that really likes lists. It likes pros and cons. It likes all that kind of stuff, right? Decisions are not made in that front part of your brain with lists and stuff. Decisions about behavior are made in your limbic brain, okay? That is where emotion is. That's where we don't reason out our decisions there, right? But that's where we make them. And then we go and we rationalize them with all the facts and figures and stuff that our frontal brain tells us. Dr. David Calm, he's a neuroscientist in Canada, and he says the essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action while reason leads to conclusions. Let me say that again. Emotion leads to action, while reason leads to conclusions. So out there in the frontal cortex, we have language, logical thought, things like that. That's where we make the list of features and benefits. I call that the brochure part of the brain, right? That's what lives out there. It's all that crap we put in brochures. I mean, all that wonderful stuff that we put in brochures. We make our lists of features and benefits, pros and cons, all that kind of stuff. Out here is why I choose a Toyota versus a Honda, right? I chose the minivan somewhere deep inside, right? But the Honda, Toyota, whatever. One gets better mileage, one looks pretty, whatever, right? That's where we make those kinds of decisions. We rationalize it to ourselves in that front part of our brain, okay? So if you're a fan of Simon Sinek, you've heard this kind of thing before, but we present our information traditionally in the exact opposite order from what I would call behavior driving way, whatever, right? So we come out with our big list of features and benefits. We tell you our widgets are the fastest, and our business has been in business for 474 years, and it's family owned, and a bunch of other stuff that nobody cares about yet. It's not that stuff isn't important, it's just not important yet. And then we hopefully try to drive down further into that emotional part of the brain, and most times we don't get there. And so people are left with a bingo ball to try and figure out what they're going to do. So how do you get someone to buy something? Why do you do business with people? Why do you do business with certain brands or certain people over others, right? I believe that you have to engender trust first, and then you can justify it later. You have to get to that emotional part of the brain, that part that makes people feel something, the part that where they can decide whether or not they really feel like what you're telling them is the truth, and then you can talk about that other stuff. And so the thing that really separates you from your competition is just that. It's the truth, right? It's the stuff that resonates deep inside somewhere that tells you, yes, this is a good choice, or yes, this feels like the right thing to do. Now that's hard to do. And it's hard because of what I'm about to show you. Okay, so this is another little video. Again, it's a joke. Don't get worked up. See if it helps. Come on now.
1994, the year of putting a bit of a kink in the handle. Sales up by 8%. 1997, the year of putting some of the bristles in diagonally. Sales up by 12.5%. 2002, your finest hour, Chaz. The year of putting in some blue bristles to tell them when they need to buy a new one. For the first time, people are actually taking orders from their toothbrush. Sales up by 26%. Guys, it's 2006. I have one question for you. What's next? Chaz?
No.
Come on, guys. This is serious. People are out there right now buying toothbrushes that we didn't make.
I think we have to realise we may have run out of things we can tell them they need on their toothbrush.
I think we could get them to brush their tongues.
I admire your reach, Gus, but no. They're not going to brush their tongues.
I think they will. I think that if we tell them to brush their tongues, they'll brush their tongues.
Is there any health benefit to brushing your tongue?
I have no idea. But show me your tongue. Oh, yeah. You see? Dirty. He's got a dirty tongue.
Has he?
No, of course he hasn't. But you thought he might have. And when it's not me saying it, but a Scottish brunette in rectangular glasses and a lab coat.
I think you might have something. They might actually brush their tongues.
Of course they will. Did you know that up to 68% of us...
So that's how people see us, right? They think we sit in a room and we make stuff up and then we're like, they'll brush their tongues, right? So that's what they see. And so that's why getting to the truth is hard. That's why trust is difficult, right? With our super educated consumer today. So why does video work? Well, candidly, it's because, for a lot of reasons. One is that it engages all the senses, right? You have a primary sensory dominance, whether you know it or not. You're either visual or you're auditory, you're kinesthetic. You're one of those things. Most of the world, the vast majority of the world, fall into visual and auditory, right? So video covers all of that, right? It covers all of the different ways that you learn, the way that you take in the world. And so it's a very, very powerful tool for that reason. We don't have time to go into it. Just trust me, there's a lot of research. You know what? Video good. Just remember that? Okay. So the main point, though, is, in my opinion, that we've come to a point in marketing where truth is that most powerful thing that will inspire action. It's the most powerful way we have to connect with another human being. And the most powerful way to get that to someone is to show them the truth. And obviously, the most powerful way to show them the truth, in my wildly biased opinion, is to create video. So the team at, I was going to mention Doug Kessler. Does anyone know who Doug Kessler is? No. Velocity Partners. He describes something called insane honesty. That's another one. Google that. Again, don't do it now, but do it later. Doug Kessler, insane honesty. There's a slide share about it. Read it. It's fantastic. He describes an experience. They were trying to get a room at a restaurant for a meeting, and they email a bunch of people. Most of them don't get back to them. The few that do get back to them, one of them really stood out because she was almost like trying to unsell them. You know, they had certain requirements like, oh, we need a private room, and it's got to have a vegetarian menu, and it's got to have, you know, all this stuff, right? And she was like, well, we don't really have private rooms, but here's how we can overcome that. Well, we don't really have a vegetarian menu. We have vegetarian dishes, but we're a fish restaurant, and that's what we are. We don't want to be try to pretend like we're something we're not, right? And they were so impressed with the way that she was just so transparent and honest with the things that they were not, and then how she was going to overcome that to meet their need, that they were like, wow, that's amazing. And so because of her insane honesty, because as marketers, that's not our job, right? We're not supposed to tell the truth. We're supposed to put our best foot forward, and we're supposed to, you know, make sure everything's shiny and happy. And they're like the first video we watched. Everyone of every race loves this stuff, right? I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. So the restaurant didn't have any of those things. She told them what they might not like, what they could do about it, and how they were going to fix it, right? So again, our job as marketers is to tell the truth, to make weaknesses into strengths. To do business with everybody is not the goal. To do business with people that believe what you believe is the goal, right? So if I believe, or if I come across someone rather that believes that my service should be the absolute cheapest thing, that they can do it with an iPhone and it's the simplest thing in the whole wide world, then they don't want to buy from me and I don't want to do business with them, right? I mean, if that's their true belief. Does anyone want to do business based on being the lowest price in the room? Anyone? Just jump right up. No, go ahead, it's okay. Don't be shy, right? Nobody wants to do that. So if you come across a customer that really believes that the lowest price is the way to go, you don't want to do business with them. I don't want to do business with people that think making a video is some sort of like a moving brochure. I'm not interested in that, right? I'm interested in people that understand that video is a necessary tool to drive trust and thus move behavior. And the way that we do that is through truth-telling, not storytelling, right? We hear about being great storytellers and all this kind of stuff. Stories are good and stories are important as long as they're true, okay? So it's simple, but it's not easy. All right, we're down to the last 6 or so minutes. So now nudge that guy next to you because we're gonna get to some takeaways, right? So this is where our Y times 7 process comes in, all right? So Y times 7, and I don't know if you read that in the I don't know what to call it, a pre-blast, a summary, abstract, whatever. We do this process called Y times 7. And basically what it means is you act like a toddler. That's what you do. Now, not in like the throw yourself on the ground in the grocery store kind of toddler, but the toddler that's like, why, mommy? Why, daddy? Why? You know, they say like, why are there clouds? And you go, well, there's vapor. And they go, well, why? And you go, I don't know. So quit asking. But that's your job, right? You have to ask why. And you have to ask why at least 7 times. Not literally, don't be a pain in the butt, but more or less 7 times, right? So let me give you an example. And I chose this example because I think it's something that everyone can relate to. A swimming pool. Anyone not been to a swimming pool before? Okay, so everyone gets it. So they're not a huge company, but it applies across the board, whether it's a big brand, a small company, it doesn't matter. But this is something I thought everyone could relate to, so that's why we chose it. So they came to us saying, we're not selling enough of our product. Does anyone have that as a complaint? We're not selling enough of our product, or maybe you've heard someone say to you, hey, we want to sell more stuff. It's very specific, thanks. It's really helpful. Really? So first we had to ask, okay, what is it that you do? And what they do is they make, it's called paddock evacuators. They make these huge air treatment systems. It's basically a big air filtration kind of a deal for indoor pools, right? Okay, great. Giant air cleaners, wonderful. Why would anyone want one of those, right? There's why number 1. Well, you know, it stinks in the pool area, and there's like rust on the, you know, lifeguard chairs and in the seats and stuff, and sometimes we see mold, whatever, it doesn't matter. But this is where most marketers stop. They go, fantastic, got it, right? And they say, I'm gonna make a list of features and benefits about what this thing can do to clear up rust. It moves, you know, 4,700,000 gallons of air in a second, and all the air, and I guess that would be like a vacuum or something. Probably everyone would die, but whatever. But you get the point, right? So we list this whole list of features and benefits about why this thing's amazing and how it's gonna cure these problems. These are the solutions to the problems. But the problem is that's not the real problem, right? We only asked why like twice. And so we're not to the truth yet. We're at truth indicators. We have some things that are pointing toward truth, but that's not the truth. Those are symptoms, okay? So here's what you have to do as marketers, and why you're gonna make a video about it, I'll show you later, but here's what you have to do as marketers, right? You have to get to the truth. So you go, okay, well, why does it smell, and why is there rust and mold? And they say, well, you know, they start talking about the chemistry and the chlorine and the this and the that and the whatever, right? Very interesting. Then you have to ask, okay, why does that matter? And they say, well, you know, it costs money to replace the chairs, and nobody likes the smell. So replace the chairs. Like, why don't you just replace the chairs? And the smell, everybody knows that's just how a pool smells, right? Have you ever been to a pool that didn't smell? It's a thing. It's almost nostalgic, right? You walk in, you know, you're at the pool, right? And images of Speedos or whatever, you know, it's a thing. So why does that matter? And then they start saying things like, well, the smell is actually gas that's emitted from the chemicals that are in the water mixing with the organics, like hair and sweat and other stuff, right, that ends up in a pool sometimes. And it's often gas, and that's what it is. Okay, so there's air, stinky air, fine. Well, why is the air stinky? Well, because these chemical combinations are toxic, as it turns out. And so actually the problem is that people are getting sick. If you have prolonged exposure to this pool air, these guys that are swimmers and do swimming all the time, that's why you see a lot of these asthma and different problems that people have. And you start going, there's personal impact there. The truth is not that the stuff is rusting or this or that or the other. We can treat symptoms all day long, right? The problem is, the truth is, people get sick. and sometimes really sick, depending on how long that they're exposed to that by breathing that crappy air. And that's the truth. And so my mind immediately goes to my 3 girls. And I think to myself, my girls love the pool. They're in the pool all the time. I mean, I could basically leave them there and all summer and not come back. And sometimes that sounds great. But what's the long-term effect of that? And so now you have to take that truth, not just the features and benefits of how many gallons of air it might move in a however long. You have to take that truth and you have to show it to that prospect. Now, I know we're going to run out of time, but I want to remind you of something. The essential difference between emotion and reason is that emotion leads to action while reason leads to conclusions. And so we had to make them something that fit into that customer journey that told that truth.
Would you ride around in a car with no exhaust system? Of course not. Fumes from the engine would enter the car, right? So why would you swim in an indoor pool without an effective exhaust system? Oh, you didn't know that the air hanging around a typical indoor pool is toxic? Well, check this out. Pools are kept clean by introducing chlorine into the water. The chlorine attacks organics in the water, stuff like body oils, hair, dirt, and other things we probably shouldn't mention here. Chlorine wages a war against organics and wins. Yay, chlorine. But this war is not fought without a price. That pool smell isn't the chlorine itself. It's the chemical byproducts of chlorine doing its job. Remember when your mom warned against mixing bleach and ammonia? Well, in this equation, the chlorine is the bleach and the organics are the ammonia. According to the World Health Organization, here's just some of the dangerous byproducts that off-gas from the swimming pool. Gases such as trichloramine, chloroform, cyanogen chloride, and trichloronitromethane. Seriously nasty stuff. Pause the video and Google it. We'll wait.
And so you get the idea, right? And we go through this whole litany of horrible things. Basically, you're going to die if you swim ever again, just so you know. Without one of these in the room, right? So the point is that you end up emotionally involved. Why? Not because of a list of features and benefits, but because we met you in the customer journey at a place where you were saying to yourself, I've got a lot of different choices I could make. So why should I choose this versus that, this company or that thing over another? And the point is that by presenting it to them in a way that they easily can understand and that connects with them emotionally, then they're ready. And these guys can tell you how it drove up leads 8 times, 800% and all this kind of stuff. And that's wonderful, and we're very happy about that. But at the end of the day, it connected with another human being. We are in the people business. And so we have to show people what we do and why we do it every step of the way. And the only way to do that is with a well-constructed video. And so I'll take a few questions if you have them. I was trying really hard to get us out of here in a reasonable amount of time. But thank you very much.
Take questions.
Thank you. So the question was, do we have an optimal length of a video? And the answer is yes, depends on where in that journey they are, right? So early in the journey, you have to have a lot shorter kinds of videos. You really shouldn't present anything over probably about a minute or so, is what kind of the research indicates, and certainly our experience indicates. As you get further in to that journey, you can present longer videos, so you could get up to maybe 2 minutes or so. But until they're actually a customer, you really shouldn't show them anything much longer than that. Any other questions, thoughts? Tomatoes? Cool. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
I did not know that.